Welcome to the Truth Hoax. Unfortunately, since I started following the so-called truth movement, I've become aware that most of the people who lead it are fakes and frauds, con men and liars. And so the truth movement doesn't do what it's supposed to at all. If anything, it does the opposite. It promotes lies and actually covers up the truth. None of us really want to be sheep. That's why we've been attracted to the truth movement. We're looking for answers for the weird stuff that goes on in our day-to-day life. And we know that the things that we're being told through the TV and on media outlets just aren't true. But unfortunately, what tends to happen is that we start following people with different ideas, and it turns out that they're just leading us astray in one direction or another. And hopefully, as you've seen through the Week in Truth series that I've done, there are an awful lot of these people. But there are an awful lot of people. And the aim of all these different movements is to keep us in our place. So, although you think you might be being different, you're not being different. You're just following a different kind of shepherd and being a different kind of sheep. You see, when it comes to people like David Icke, the things that he talks about, what kind of a percentage of truth do you think you're getting? Because I think David Icke's one of the better ones, and I believe quite a few of the things that he talks about. For example, 9/11 and 7/7. I don't think many people still believe the official version of events when it comes to these things. So yeah, when you hear David Icke talking about 9/11, you think, yeah, I agree. I don't think that what we're being told about this is the truth. And I think it was a good excuse to start a war. And a war that can never actually be won because it's a war against terrorists, not countries. And then there's all the things that we found out about Jimmy Savile and Edward Heath and the various paedophiles. And David Icke was right about those as well, wasn't he? Some of us have seen things in the sky and we don't know what they are, and we think pretty much the government knows what they are, or at least somebody definitely does. So it's not surprising that many of us are looking for answers. And to be honest, the government knows that we're looking for answers too. And in setting up the truth movement, it's attempted to provide them and to some extent keep us pacified. So we have some information about what's going on. But then there's all this stuff about lizard people and the royal family being lizards and stuff like that. And so pretty soon it starts to look a bit dodgy and the wheels come off. But also you have to remember how this sounds to other people. And David Icke from the beginning looked rather dodgy, and people will always say, oh yeah, what about that time he said he was Jesus? I don't think he really said he was Jesus. He said something like we all have a part of God in us or something like that. But that's what people remember, and they remember that terrible interview on Wogan and stuff. But essentially, if you are the type of person who has questions to ask, you know full well that something or someone is running the world that is not governments and not who you are led to believe it is. But you see, the truth movement is set up in such a way as to be incredulous. So someone like David Icke is meant to tell us only about 65% of the truth, and the rest is things that are lies and deliberately make it look unbelievable, like the lizard people stuff. That is the way that they keep the truth hidden, because it's like the one bad apple that spoils the barrel. The lizard people story spoils and hides the rest of it, because once people know that this idea is associated with David Icke, the lunatic on Wogan, they automatically think the rest of it is rubbish too. If we take a look at this case of, this I think was Operation Fernbridge, and this guy in the middle here is Andrew Ashe. And he was only one of the witnesses of Operation Fernbridge, just one. But he's the one that became most prominent. He had a lot of media attention, even within the truth movement itself. You see the headline here. The politician is said to have forced a boy in a care home to perform a vile sex act at one of a series of drug-fueled parties in Westminster in the 80s. So the banana graphics at the bottom are meant to represent all of the different and good witnesses that came forward to Operation Fernbridge. But you see, Andrew Ashe was a banana skin. His testimony was not reliable. And actually, if you want to go to Brian Harvey's YouTube, although I have questions to ask about Brian Harvey, he exposed what this man, Brian Maloney, was up to at the time. He actually seems to have been bullying Andrew Ashe into revealing names of people that he wasn't actually abused by. So Andrew Ashe is very much the banana skin. Once again, he's the bad apple that spoils the barrel. So when the police came out and said that some of the testimony in Operation Fernbridge was unreliable and no good, everyone knew that was Andrew Ashe, and everybody ignored the witnesses who were telling the truth. All they thought of was Andrew Ashe. And yet this situation was orchestrated by this man here, Bill Maloney. Obviously, we call him Baloney because he's now known pretty much by everybody in the truth movement to be a fake fraud shill and probably working for MI5. This man disappeared from the truth movement to be replaced by John Wedger. But you see, the Westminster paedophile ring story really disappeared after this. It resurfaced and then Theresa May lost the files, allegedly, but it's being covered up. And the truth movement really covered this up too. And if you see, really, Brian Harvey had the role of exposing it, also to be a lie, but that was also desirable. So this is when you start to think about multi-level truth pantomime, as I call it. So you have the person supposedly exposing the lie, but actually they're part of the setup too. And I hope Brian Harvey isn't, because I'd like him to be genuine, but I just don't know. But you see, all that people remember about Operation Fernbridge now is Andrew Ashe and how unreliable he was and the whole thing. If we look at how the truth movement has dealt with coronavirus, it's another example of how they have been used to push things in various directions. We've been told that coronavirus is a hoax, but all the time we're being told coronavirus is a hoax and people are protesting about having to wear masks, the real issues are being completely ignored. If you go to Big Brother Watch, they've got a really good video about the coronavirus bill and all of the very unreasonable things in it, to name but two. At the moment, councils do not have to provide social care for disabled people. They don't have that obligation to provide that care at the moment. The coronavirus bill conveniently exempts them. And the other thing, of course, is that now it only takes one doctor to section somebody and to imprison them in a mental health institute. Previously, two doctors had to agree. So you see, there's all sorts of restrictions on our civil liberties that come under the coronavirus bill. But the truth movement wants you to focus on masks. And it's because of this that you end up being seen as a conspiracy theorist, and your friends come to think of you like this, as a tinfoil hat wearer, someone who believes that the earth is flat, and this is what they think when you won't wear a mask. And unfortunately, this is totally what you look like to people who will not consider the possibility of there being something else ruling the world other than governments. To them, you look like this. And that's how the truth movement wants it, because the more you rant about masks and things like that, which really aren't reasonable, the less attractive you seem to other people. It really doesn't help your cause. It just makes you look like an idiot. So, what is all the money about? Because they're always asking for donations, aren't they? You look at any one of them. I can think a long way back, if you look at the other videos as part of the Week in Truth, there's one about the People's Voice, where David Icke and co had £300,000 in donations to set up a TV channel. John Wedger is always asking for money. Sean Atwood wants donations. He had the GoFundMe for Callie Diamond. All of them do this. So you're left thinking, why? If they're really working for GCHQ, they've got plenty of money. Why are they asking for donations? Well, part of it is this. It provides them with a cover story. So say, for example, with John Wedger, people won't start saying, oh, I bet he works for MI5. They start to say, oh, he was just a grifter. He was just after your money. He's a con man. They don't see the person being part of the apparatus of state. The other thing is, of course, that when you've given your time and money to a cause, you've got personal investment in it. So people that have done that and then feel that they've been ripped off turn their back on the truth movement. They turn their back on activists. It's all a rip-off. They feel beaten and disillusioned, and they abandon any thoughts of insurrection. And once again, that's what the state wants. They want you back in your box. They want you to give up. Now, I would say the answer to all this is a revolution. Picture of a steam train may seem a bit odd to you. This train is called the Oliver Cromwell. I've watched enough Thomas the Tank Engine to know that it's actually an engine, not a train. So I will apologise for that one. It's the Oliver Cromwell steam engine. The very reason that the truth movement is there is to stop us having a revolution, not to get us all together to have one. And in fact, if it does become something of a revolution, it won't be a genuine one. It's all being controlled. That's the nature of controlled opposition. We have to want to organise revolution for ourselves, and the power that we get has to be for ourselves. The idea of political parties has to disappear. And the idea of activists and organisations has to disappear. So we have to all vote for ourselves, if you like. We can't do this thing where we have a leader in a group anymore because it's open to so much corruption. Now, before I end this, I just want to give you a few examples of how things have been done like this before in the world, because you'll be thinking, no, the truth movement's grassroots and, it's all good, man. It's not. This way of leading the public has been, this is as old as the Ark, really. I'm sure it was being done in ancient Egypt. In fact, I know it was. But the examples that I will give you are closer to modern days. The Monarchist Union of Central Russia was a fake activist movement set up by the Soviet regime back in the USSR. So, of course, the rebels in those days against the communist state were people who wanted to reinstate the monarchy, as in the royal family of Russia. So what was later to be called the KGB, which was the intelligence agencies in Russia, set up a fake anti-Bolshevik underground organization called the Monarchist Union of Central Russia. And all the people that were attracted to participate in this monarchist union were arrested and executed. There's another page here in History, How Stuff Works, that mentions the Monarchist Union of Central Russia. It was an umbrella organization, and they didn't realize until too late that the union was a ruse, a honeypot set up by the Soviets themselves. They created their own enemy, their own resistance movement, Cypher says, so that they knew everybody, and eventually they killed them all. So you might think this truth movement, if Simon Parkes wants your name and address to sign you up to Connecting Consciousness, well, everybody knows your address in the state now if he works for MI5. So really it's an intelligence gathering exercise. Everybody's out in the open that might be a threat to the regime. And you're all out in the open, kiddies. For the rest of the people that are meeting in pubs and talking to each other and forming activist movements, I've already done another video which is about the undercover policing. This is the front page of the Undercover Policing Inquiry website. As you will know, Special Branch have continued putting policemen into activist movements to the extent where these policemen were having affairs, usually with female activists, fathering children with them, and then disappearing, saying that they'd had a mental breakdown. Unfortunately, the world being as it is now, these people were found out. Of course, we don't know about all the people who weren't found out, and they probably will be over the forthcoming years. But it's gruesome, really, what has gone on. And a lot of these policemen that had quite lengthy assignments are actually now lecturing on the subject. They're university lecturers. One of them in particular got promoted to the head of department in the special branch that he was working in. People go on then to work in MI5 or MI6. It's absolutely puke-making, really. Yet another example, this is back in Victorian times, at 1892, a group called the Walsall Anarchists. Recent research into police files has revealed that the bombings, because a lot of these people went to jail for bombings that they committed, were instigated by Auguste Coulon, an agent provocateur of Special Branch Inspector William Melville. So William Melville was like the line manager of this Auguste Coulon bloke, and Coulon gave these other anarchists documents that showed them how to make the bombs and provoked them to go around planting them in various places. It was entirely his fault. So really, he was responsible for the whole thing, and he should have been the one who went to prison. Of course, he didn't. He entirely escaped. He didn't serve any time for it at all. His line manager, William Melville, went on to become an early official of what became MI5. So, unfortunately, a lot of people in the latter-day truth movement belong to this category of people. They will work for MI5, MI6, the CIA, special branch, you name it. And these days they can add to it people who are employed by private corporations and organizations. It's pretty much endless. Whoever has got the money for it can pay for it. If you consider how many billions of human beings there are in the world now, really, if there were even a few hundred people in the UK that were employed by the state, it would be a drop in the ocean. They have to control billions of people. That's very expensive, but our tax money is going to pay for it. Okay, folks, that really explains my ideas on what the truth movement is, I'm afraid. So the people who think lots of things are hoaxes, from school shootings to coronavirus, you're being played and also set up as a domestic extremist where you can be easily sent to prison for your crimes against the state. Right, well, that's the end of this presentation. I hope you don't find it too depressing, because knowledge is power, isn't it, David? And hopefully one day we will surpass these people. Thanks for watching.